It's that time of year again, Halloween season. On Blood and Black Rum podcast, we take this very seriously. So we're going back to the basics with what we're calling Halloweenies 2. Movies that take place on or around Halloween. Your favorites like Hocus Pocus, Ernest Scared Stupid, Terrifier, and more. Tune in all September and October as we smash jack-o'-lanterns and Oktoberfest in equal fashion.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from coldsploitation.com, and I am joined with my spooky co-host, Martin.
How's it going?
Doing well. We are back in the Halloween season. I'm totally in the spirit of things. We get into, the middle of September now? It's kind of hard to believe, actually. It's been going very fast. Don't believe that we're already that far in. But here we are, 3 episodes into our Halloweenies 2 series. And we've been covering Halloween movies all month long so far. And
we're on episode number 3 now.
Yeah, number 3. We are going to be talking about so last time we did Ernest Scared Stupid, which is, more of like a nostalgia sort of thing. And this time we're going to be talking more about a, more traditional horror movie that does take place around Halloween as well. This one's not your kids movie, of course. It's a bit edgier than that.
Are you sure? Because Ernest, essentially in the last film, if you watch it and with the modern day lens, murdered a whole bunch of people with his antics, let alone nearly killed himself in a garbage truck several times.
It's true. Melted down some trolls. It's true. So yeah, that one was for a Disney scale, definitely on the more obscene.
Acceptable for early 90s Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, you watch the Mighty Ducks. Well, how did old Gordon Bombay get this job as teaching kids how to play hockey? A lot of people forget this. It was because he got charged with a DUI because he's a drunk. And it took the heart of children to make him turn down the drink and find love.
That's right. So this time we're talking about a movie that I had said that I've never seen before, and I was wrong. I have seen it before. Didn't realize that I'd seen it. For whatever reason, I had forgotten about it.
That's how you know you're in peak film territory. I've never seen it before.
To be fair to myself, it was a few years ago. So this film released in 2016, actually. Kind of surprising it's been that long since it released. So I don't think I saw it upon release, but
2018 is when it got an
actual release by Dread Central, right? Yeah, so I probably saw it somewhere around there, 2018, 2019, something like that. And I don't know why, but I always get the movies in the series a little bit confused for whatever reason. But we're talking about 2016/2018's Dread Central Presents movie, Terrifier. by Damien Leone. And
that's my creepy clown laugh.
That's a good one. It's like Krusty the Clown paired with a creepy clown laugh. Because you had like the like the Krusty has. Or yeah, like a Woody sort of, you had them both.
Yeah.
So, pretty good.
I do a pretty good Krusty laugh. Hey, kid.
So how come you should be for Halloween? You should be like creepy Krusty the Clown.
Well, like Krusty's very creepy.
The spookier version.
So you know what? Let's start Halloweenies over with. We're just gonna do Treehouse of Horror. Or we're just gonna do all 50 Treehouse of Horror episodes now.
That's right. I actually set out to watch all of those at one point. I haven't seen all of them because I think there's 35 now or something. But I've seen a lot of them. And the one thing that you notice as the Treehouse of Horror goes along is that they just constantly are just recycling movies, and they just do the movies basically as a skit, which I don't prefer. I like it when they do more of the original pieces instead of trying to just make a fun or do a mock movie, because I don't think those work as well. So. But anyway, we're talking about Terrifier, and like I said, this is one that I had seen a little while ago. Didn't really remember it. I knew of Art the Clown. I've known of Art the Clown as a character, and previously he had made an appearance in All Hallows Eve, which was another one of Damien Leone's films earlier than Terrifier. And for whatever reason, I get those mixed up a lot. Like, I get which one has Terrifier stuff in it and which one is All Hallows Eve. But I like the idea that Damien Leone has of setting all these at Halloween and kind of have like a throughput of the same sorts of things happening on Halloween night. Like that idea a lot. And he's gotten a lot of recognition of late, because last year's Terrifier 2, which I haven't seen yet, but at an exorbitant 2 hours and 18 minutes is kind of surprising how much acclaim it's gotten. And I think most of that has to do with the special effects work, because Leone is a special effects guy. He works on practical effects, and Terrifier is kind of like his baby, where he gets to do everything: writing, directing, and special effects work. So he's gotten a lot of acclaim recently with Terrifier 2, and probably just ups the ante from Terrifier, but Terrifier's already pretty gory and gruesome and brutal. And you'd never seen Terrifier, right? Never even heard of it. Didn't know about Art the Clown being some sort of like Halloween bastion. No, not familiar with him. I think, like, you know, in this scenario with Art the Clown, you kind of have a low budget horror icon that's not probably well known by people who just casually watch horror movies, but if you're really into the underground, you might know Art the Clown, and you might recognize him as his own horror icon. I don't know. So we'll talk about that as we get into the movie itself. Is Art the Clown a horror icon? I'll leave that. You don't have to answer that now. I'll leave that an open-ended question for later on to answer. But yeah, Terrifier. I feel like with the first Terrifier, that one kind of came and went a little bit more than the newer version, the Terrifier 2, which actually Terrifier 2 got like some theatrical releases. Terrifier, as far as I know, didn't really get any theatrical releases. It was definitely on a fairly low budget, $35,000. Really not super popular actors or anything like that in it. Kind of just did its thing and went. But for whatever reason, you know, Terrifier 2 got a lot bigger, got a lot more recognition, and here we are. Let's take a break real quick, talk about the beer that we have on the show before we get into the actual film itself. Because we have another surprise, right? We have another Oktoberfest on the show. Can you believe it? This one's more of a fest beer style, though, because we've had a couple Marzens on the show this year. Got a fest beer on the show. And I wanted to get this one because we've had Sierra Nevada's Oktoberfest previously. I've actually had it, a couple years. And I didn't realize this, but it seems like Sierra Nevada likes to work with different German breweries for their Oktoberfest each year. So a lot of times when you go on apps like Untapped, people are trying to get like the most check-ins of different types of beers. So they always make like a new version for the year. So like they'll be like, here's Oktoberfest 2019. Here's Oktoberfest 2022. And for the most part, those are super unnecessary because the recipe doesn't really change year to year. But it does make sense for the Oktoberfest from Sierra Nevada because they do brew with a different brewer every year. So this year, I wanted to pick this one up for one thing because it's got a kick-ass can. What do you think about the can?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I like it because it's kind of got like that orange and black, like Halloween fall element to it. But it's also got the Oktoberfest.
I wouldn't say it's orange.
Yeah, I guess it's more like yellowish. Yeah,
it's like a yellow jacket, like a bumblebee.
Yeah, like gold, yellow. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it's like a striking can. Very presentable. So that was one reason why I wanted to pick it up. But then, I wanted to pick it up because it's a collaboration with Kehrwieder Brewery, which I don't know. I've never heard of them before. But I thought it was cool that they do collaborations for their Oktoberfest, so I wanted to try it out. And then thirdly, it's a fest beer, which is not super common for Oktoberfest American Marzen styles. So, what do you think?
I like it a lot. Finishing one dead soldier down onto the second one. But I do like it a lot. It's definitely different. And I do appreciate, the more we're kind of having fest beers, and kind of comparing them to Marzens, I'll always prefer Marzens, but I do think fest beers have a nice little difference to offer. They're cleaner, less breadier. This one is, as you mentioned to me before, you gave it to me, does have a hop quality to it that's kind of seems weird for the style, but I think it works actually pretty well because it gives a nice Sierra Nevada little hot bite to it to go with that fest beer style. It's still bready, not as bready as a Marzen, obviously. Very crisp, very clean, very easy to drink. Gives me a nice warming sensation as I drink it, as the cold is rolling in. I like this a lot. This is a very good, fest beer style. And if they truly do because I never paid attention either to them mixing it up with breweries. I don't know if that's a recent phenomenon within the past couple of years or not. Because to be honest with you, I probably haven't bought Sierra Nevada's Oktoberfest for a couple of years. But if that's the case, that's pretty cool, and it'd be interesting to see, what they do, going forward. I would definitely say check this out. This is a great offer by them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it either. I don't know if I've just never noticed that they do the collaborations or what, and they kind of made a bigger deal about it this year. I saw a post from them on Facebook that said, they was talking about the collaboration that they've done, and it kind of piqued my interest, so I definitely wanted to seek that one out again this year. I think it's pretty good. It's not my favorite Oktoberfest. It's definitely, like I said, a lot more suited towards the fest beer style because it doesn't have a huge malty, bready characteristic to it. It does have it to some extent, but as Martin said, the hops actually do come out quite a bit at the end of the beer, so it's kind of like a malty, slightly bready, but overall more hoppy characteristic to it with a lighter body than you would expect from a Marzen style. So I think it's good. And as I've said before, fest beers are my favorite style in the Oktoberfest category. So I do prefer myself a Marzen, but in this case, I do think they've done a pretty good job with it. And, even though the hop is a little bit odd towards the end of the beer, I think it works. And it kind of gives it a character that sets this Oktoberfest apart from some others because it kind of gives it a Sierra Nevada, staple that, has hops and it's a little bit different. So it sets it apart, gives you something to talk about from an Oktoberfest because sometimes you taste an Oktoberfest, it's good, it's bready, it's malty. Not much more to say about it. It has a little bit more of a unique characteristic to it. So I think it's pretty good. I would definitely recommend it, checking it out. It's in a 12-pack. Get it for about $18 to $20. So definitely worth it, especially considering that some breweries, not going to name names, are trying to market, 16-ounce cans, 4-pack cans for $20 for a 4-pack. And that's, I think, a little steep considering some of the other breweries that are able to put this out at a much lower price point. So definitely check it out from Sierra Nevada and Kehrwieder. And I'll keep an eye out for Kehrwieder as well. See if we can find anything else by that brewery because like I said, I've never heard of them before. But I like the idea of doing a collaboration like that. So, Prost, Sierra Nevada. All right, so on to Terrifier. So I guess let's start right at the beginning. What do you think about that opening scene where you get kind of like that staticky TV that we are kind of slowly zooming into that sets the whole storyline in motion about a victim of Art the Clown, and she's on a talk show and basically giving an interview about how she was mutilated and now has come to look as she does, with a nice practical effect of her face kind of all cut up, very obviously sadistic attack on her, missing her eyes. What do you think about that, the opening?
Kind of made me think of how was his October bill? I'm like, oh, are we getting a documentary here? Because it starts off with like the whole TV motif and the interview, and it's interesting the way that the victim looks. I do think the makeup works there really good. Really visceral. It's interesting. Because it's like usually. Especially with like a first film, you don't have a slasher genre. It's the killer's not like an established thing. Mm-hmm. So to have like the lore kind of out there. Well, I guess technically this isn't the first film, then, is it? If he was in All Hallows Eve, but whatever the case may be, it's interesting. I think it's a good way to kind of set it up, because for the most part, that's kind of all the plot there is. Because the film doesn't have a plot.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like, as you said, All Hallows Eve existed, but I think with Terrifier, you can pretty much safely assume that most people going into Terrifier probably didn't have much knowledge of Art the Clown as a character. So I think you're right that for most people coming into Terrifier, their first interaction or knowledge about Art the Clown would be this opening scene with the documentary style of describing the events that led to the woman's appearance and how she looks, and you kind of get like this opening sting as well. It's obviously a slasher movie in the sense that you've got to have that opening kill as a surprise that pops up before the title card, and it interesting. It has nothing to do with Art the Clown in terms of like him actually committing this opening kill. It's the woman who's committing it because she's sick and tired of hearing from this fucking interviewer who's on the phone after the fact, says like, I just kill me now if I look like that bitch. Like, which I do like though, because I think that Terrifier, as you said, it doesn't really have much of a storyline, and I would say, and we'll talk about this more later, but I would say even more so, the story that it does present is often pretty messy. Doesn't really, some of the storylines don't really like tie into each other. They don't add up. But in this first opening sequence, I kind of like the idea of setting up the fact that like Art the Clown and his butchery is so horrible and so has mangled this woman so much that there's like that idea that you might want to kill yourself, because it does set that like sort of realism in motion of like, wow, it'd really be horrible to have to live through that and then constantly live that pain and suffering, like even if you didn't want to. So I think it sets up a kind of interesting idea at the beginning of the movie. Doesn't really follow through with it, but it's still kind of a nice setup for segueing into Art the Clown, because that's pretty much what we get after that. After that initial opening kill, we go right into Halloween night, and we see two women walking down the street on Halloween night. And I guess I'm going to start off here by saying, while this film does take place on Halloween, I'm only giving it 5 out of 10 for the Halloween shenanigans, festivities, etc. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I would agree. It's like Halloween in name only, because our protagonist is your friend are dressed up in skimpy after Halloween party outfits.
I think that
as they're walking down the street, there's no pumpkins, there's no
right. Maybe just like the occasional shot of like a pumpkin in the trash or something like that.
Nothing to distinguish itself, to make it like, oh, this is a Halloween night in this little town down in made up bullshit New York County land.
Yeah. I think the problem is, like you said, they're obviously coming from a Halloween party because they got their costumes on, but it doesn't really scream Halloween. There's no, and of course this time is well after you would expect to see trick-or-treaters. It's kind of like the tail end of Halloween night. I think even at one point they say it's around midnight. So it's at the tail end of Halloween, but still, you don't really get the feel of Halloween in this, except for like some sporadic decorations, a couple shots of like a smashed pumpkin, their costumes, and then you have to have radio announcers quite a bit saying like, it's Halloween night, and you get it. I will say you get a nice like classic style 80s 90s commercial about like, come in to our spooky Halloween costume shop and purchase all your Halloween goodies here, like sort of like old style, like, come on into our department store, we've got everything you'll need, we've got candy, we've got plastic masks, come on down to Ames, we're liquefied. Yeah, pretty much. It's liquidating our warehouse, and we need you to buy this scarecrow that we've had for sale for the last 5 years, and no one's purchased it, so come on down, come grab it. But it definitely reminds me of the 80s and 90s commercials at times, and the WNUF Halloween Special, which we'll be covering in a later episode. So I like that a lot, but I would say that the actual Halloween elements to this are few and far between, especially as we get further into the movie and it starts to all take place in like dingy warehouse number 2. From like a set. I can imagine, like, especially for a low budget director, going out to Hollywood and being like, going up to like some real estate agent and be like, do you guys have like digi warehouse for us to use? And like, yeah, well, let's take you around. And there's like 4 different digi warehouses on a set somewhere. Like, which one suits you the best? Oh, dude, dingy warehouse number 2. It's kind of like a garage. It's kind of got like just random tires spread all over the place. Once that occurs, I feel like the Halloween really fades out and it's just like straight up standard slasher movie background and warehouse shit, and potentially Jigsaw's lair. They share a space. Should be more like The Odd Couple, where it's like Art the Clown over there, Jigsaw doing his trap bullshit there. They both share space.
That'd be great. Cause like, you walk in and it's like Jigsaw's like, "The hell are you doing here?"
I know.
This is my lair. You'll get into one of my traps. You wouldn't like that now.
It's fucking
go back to your area.
And not only that, but you would it would actually probably be better because you wouldn't have the one, FBI squad racing around town trying to get to 2 different warehouses. You're all in the same place. So, yeah.
Danny Glover actually busts in and gets Art the Clown. He's like, damn it, I was looking for Jigsaw. Yeah, but this guy's killed like 5 people. I was looking for Jigsaw. Damn it.
But I will say, I really do like the setup at the beginning of the movie, like when it actually starts with, what's her name? Tara? Is that her name? Yeah, Tara. And her friend, Dawn. And they're basically going to this pizza place at the middle of the night after their Halloween party, grabbing a slice of, I don't know, what do you think about that pizza? How do you think that pizza looks?
It's authentic New York style.
To me, it looked a little rather dry.
Big floppy lunch style. And then go get the folded up and boo. Bibbidi-bobbidi. Actually, you know what? I was having flashbacks while watching them kind of wander around the town a little bit and then end up in a pizza parlor of how being at your wonderfully miserable college town, North Adams in Massachusetts, and how on a weekend, at like 10 o'clock at night, walking around with my buddy after you decided to pack it in because we were hungry. Couldn't find shit open except this one random pizza parlor. Some college town. Nothing open past 9 o'clock. College town for old people.
It's true. It's true. They did, yeah. So, like, the pizza place is the only thing available, and that's the same thing in this town. That's all you get. You get a pizza place.
We didn't see anyone walking, just like they're walking around in this industrial area. Nobody around, you know.
Yep. Like, you think it can't happen to you, but if you're walking around in a...
It's such a condensed area. It's a pizzeria, a liquor store, and wine. They got pizza. It's the most...
Yeah.
The most random, like, sign, like, you know, like, exterior shot ever. Like, what, you know, like, that they picked up from the web, because obviously they didn't shoot that on site. That was, like, you know, a sitcom, like, you know,
exterior shot, like, yeah, at the beginning of a sitcom show.
Yeah.
They had to cut the music out, the Seinfeld-esque music out of it.
Or we now return to Family Matters.
But like I said, I like that opening scene of them going into pizza parlor. They see this guy, you know, Art the Clown. They see him dragging a fucking gigantic shopping bag, and they basically are just like a little bit unnerved by it. And I do think that Leone shoots a pretty good opening where it sets up like this unnatural, unsettling encounter with Art the Clown, where he's just sitting in the pizza parlor staring at them. And I think what really works is probably David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown, because he does have a lot of great facial expressions and really manages to showcase the really unsettling nature of Art the Clown, especially his teeth, because like the teeth are really what stands out, especially in the high contrast grindhousey filter that Terrifier has, and the black around his lips and everything. It really accentuates the grotesque elements of his teeth.
He was, you know, coming back from a My Chemical Romance concert. That's why he had that dainty little hat on.
And a little jaunty little...
You know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of the mime in that episode of Powerpuff Girls. That was a clown that, because, you know, color gets sucked out of him and he turns into an evil mime.
I don't know that one.
Out of everything. Yeah. That's where at the end of the episode of Beat 'em, the Powerpuff Girls had to sing a song called Love Makes the World Go Round.
Well, apparently that's what Art the Clown needs as well.
Yeah. So he looks...
But, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about. The clown that becomes the black and white mime. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a similar idea there. But what do you think about it? Like, did you think that the opening with Art the Clown, where you first meet him sitting in the pizza parlor, was that effective?
Yeah, no, I liked it. The whole setup was really good. Honestly, the best part of this movie is like the first half hour.
Mm-hmm.
The way it sets up, the way things kind of get rolling, and what transpires. It's pretty well thought out, engaging, a lot of fun. Problem is, because the film doesn't have a plot, and it's basically kind of just an expose to show what Leone can do effects-wise, so it's just effects and torture porn show from like that point on.
Yeah.
And your mileage is totally going to vary on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really, really liked the setup of it, and I was really, kind of gung-ho on the whole idea of it for the first half hour, you're right. And then I think once it gets to that garage warehouse where it really separates the two main characters, we're kind of forced into an environment that's very generic, horror movie, torture porn element. I think that's where the film kind of takes a detour that I don't really like to follow it to. I'm not saying that there's no room for torture porn to be enjoyable, but I think in Terrifier's case, you can tell that Leone is first and foremost a special effects guy, and then trying his hand at story here, because I don't think that Terrifier really has much of an effective story at all, and that's okay in some scenarios. Like if it was just, following her around the town and being spooky, and there's a spooky clown guy that's just following these women, that's fine as a setup storyline, and that would be okay if this was like a short. But for a feature-length film, which is about 84 minutes long, I feel like the idea of just having that torture porn element of just murdering people willy-nilly here and there in a warehouse, it just doesn't work as well as a long-term film. And you can tell that's not a strong suit for Leone is a storyline that actually goes anywhere. Because even after that point, there are some story beats that he tries to set up. Like there's a random woman in this garage that, has a baby doll that she calls as her baby. And it really doesn't go anywhere. It's really super unnecessary to the overall plot, except that he gets to murder her at some point, and wear her skin. It's other than that, there's really no rhyme or reason to have that element to the movie at all. There's not really a point to having the exterminator in the building. It's just like an additional character for Art the Clown to go through and murder. So I think that once it gets to that point, it really takes on too much of a torture porn element for me, personally, because I don't think just watching people be murdered in various, horrific, brutal ways is necessarily an entertaining movie. You can praise the gore in some capacity. You say, wow, they did a really good job with the practical effects. I loved when that guy got his head stomped in. Looked so great, looked so real. But I don't think that necessarily makes a good movie, and especially in Terrifier's case, I don't think that it works to the film's advantage. I would have been more happy with more of the unsettling atmosphere that was set up at the beginning of the movie, because I think that's really where the film shines. And it sounds like you agree. It sounds like you're kind of going in the same direction when you said, the first half hour is the best.
Yeah, the setup, like you said, the setup for these two Tara and Dawn being stalked by our tension that's built up, him slowly kind of picking off people, and then all that's interesting, like all that pizza parlor stuff's interesting, and then as soon as you hit the warehouse, it becomes another generic, just, run-by-the-mill slasher film, but with the violence set to 12 for intensity, grindhouse effect, etc. I think the effects are really good in this film. I do think the kills are really fun, really cool. I think, especially for the budget, a lot of great practical effect work is done here. But like I said, I was engaged for that first half hour. I'm like, man, it's a cool film. But as soon as they were dicking around in the warehouse, I'm like, man, the film's got to be almost over with. Like a lot of stuff's happened. And it's like 35 minutes in. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. We still have 40 fucking minutes to go. God damn it. And it just goes downhill because there's nothing driving anyone forward except the terror and the hunt. And I will give the film a little bit of slack on the fact that if it was made on $35,000 budget, they did the best they could. Obviously the setting, and not even before they even get to the warehouse, everything's very simple and one note: the street, the pizzeria, the warehouse. So I understand that due to the limitations, but because there's not enough real tense action going on, the hunt itself is not very fun, especially because 40 minutes in, Tara gets wasted away. She gets shot in the head 6 times. 5 minutes before that, Dawn, her friend, gets revealed to be upside down spread eagle, and he fucking muff mutilates her with a bone saw, not even a bone saw, a hacksaw, which, that, I don't know about you, I laughed hysterically. Like, that was probably done to be, like, shocking and horrifying to see her, you know, spread eagle, naked. He rips, you know, her underwear off, so she's, like, totally naked. And, like, oh my God, what's he gonna do? And then he just takes that hacksaw right to the vagina and fucking starts sawing down, and I laughed. Because it's so over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking stupid.
It's definitely, you know, it's meant to be that edginess of just like, wow, you know, sort of the same as in...
I was just thinking, like, I'm thinking of the impracticality, like, oh, a hacksaw. that, like, you're not difficult. Like, where's him, like taking a breather, like, because Tara's, like, tied to the chair of, like, him going, like, hold on.
Yeah, what you didn't see is
or him, like,
the cuts
of him having to grab 7 different saws.
Or him stopping for a nice water break every now and then, like, getting the water boy to come out here.
Yeah, thank you. But, like, it's so ridiculous. I mean, the effect is cool, but, I mean, it's so ridiculous. And what ruins it, too, is the fact that it's really tense, too, when he's got Tara tied up, and he's taking, like, the knife and, like, guiding it, like, across her neck, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he's taking something else and, like, guiding it, like, oh, I'm going to, like, and kill you with this or mutilate you with this. And he's like, no, not this. That's really tense and terrifying. And it's ruined by, you know, this muff mutilation, which, again, it's not bad, but it's stupid and hilarious. And I couldn't help but, like, be like, all right, you know, this is...
It's like, you know, you have this setup for the tenseness of Halloween and at times, and then you get Avenged Sevenfold playing over it. That's how I... Yeah, that's how I kind of describe where it goes from there. Because you're right, like, there is a nice tenseness at the beginning, and all of that is kind of blown away once that scene occurs. With the edginess of it, and the way that art gets a lot more... I guess it's supposed to be seen as sadistic, but it's less that than more just like cheesy and just laughable at times. And I understand that in some capacity, horror movies themselves are funny at times, humorous, and even horror icons like Freddy Krueger have been known to be a lot more on the like humorous side, really hamming it up, you know. But at the same time, I feel like the tone of this movie is so all over the place. Like, it just doesn't really know what it wants to be. The first half hour is very tense and very, in my opinion, very suspenseful. Like, well done suspense. And then it loses all of that, and I kind of am left feeling like I wish that the film had gone in different directions, because I think it could have been a lot better if it had done so. So yeah, that's kind of where I think that's where the scene really pulls most people out of the movie in terms of taking it seriously. But I think, as you mentioned too, outside of this show, something that takes you out of the realism happens even before that. It's when you see Dawn sitting in the car and she's listening to AM radio.
No. It's Tara's sister coming from college. You know, because their car popped a tire when they were in the pizzeria, so because they were looking to sober up before they went driving. They're responsible, so I like them for that. Points for that. And then when the tires popped and they can't get the spare on because they're drunk, the spare's not there, they call Tara's sister, and she comes driving in. From college, and she's a bore because she's, you know, it's Halloween night. She's studying for her midterm. Her roommate's coming in to have sex with her boyfriend or some dude. Who knows? It's Halloween. Who cares? And she doesn't care either, because she's like, oh, you're here. And then they just go right onto the bed as she's got like her laptop open. You know,
I feel like it was meant to be an off.
Which that was funny too, of her being like, you know what? Maybe I will come and get you. You know. And as she's driving down the throughway to go get her sister, She's listening to AM radio for some godforsaken fucking reason. And not only that, it's the clearest sounding AM channel ever. I don't know about anyone else's like AM channels in the United States, but I have never heard one clear. Like, I can only imagine what listening to the music in the 50s and 60s was like before the invention of FM. And like even like when you're on like a good solid wave, it's still fucking muffled as shit. But no, this one's coming loud and clear and like, hey, it's same way, Nate. Come on out and get all your spooky on. And oh, by the way, there's a clown killing people. This isn't a joke.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, two guys were found murdered in a pizzeria. Yeah. Look out for a creepy clown.
Yeah, I also that stood out to me as well. AM radio. Maybe it's the only thing on. Maybe everybody else had played the Star Spangled Banner and signed off for the night.
No one's playing Silver Shamrock on repeat.
Yeah, so I guess I agree though. Like, I think that the realism kind of goes away. The torture porn element to me is not as interesting, and I don't like how later on in the movie Art the Clown he just keeps getting sillier and sillier to the point where it's actually not that interesting to me to see him like riding around on a tricycle or
well, that was funny. That's like Billy.
Yeah,
he's kind of like Billy popping out. What I don't like is the supernatural. I think it'd be more terrifying if he was, supposed to be just a really sadistic, creepy dude. I think the fact that they kind of weave in, like, the supernatural, not for me. Takes away some of that real spookiness.
What about Art using a gun? How do you feel about that?
Slasher. Love that. Scream 5 took notes as, like, Ghostface and Scream 5, one of the best parts when they're in that bodega, is like, fuck this, and he just takes the bodega owner's shotgun and just starts, firing away. It's like, yeah, that's smart. It's like, this is America, for God's sakes. Use your guns.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I like it because it's that one is kind of shocking because you're not expecting it. You're thinking like, oh, he's gonna, as a normal slasher killer, he's gonna use the most unconventional of weapons, because
the cat tail kind of already.
The cat, yeah, right. Cat of nine tails, yeah. Just like flogging her. So you're thinking like, yeah, he can't use a gun. He's got to use the most ridiculous weapons. But nope, he just whips out a gun and goes to town. It's like that It's Always Sunny meme. It's like, and I started blasting.
Yeah, Danny DeVito, like, yeah. So I started blasting.
Yeah, it's basically the meme in a movie there.
I do love that he has, like, his bag of tricks with him, though. That's what's in his bag. His bag is just, like, all the things they use to kill and mutilate people. And he's just kind of like, no, what can I do now? What can I do now?
You ever think, like, with those types of, like, serial killer slasher people, there's, like, one day where they're just like, you know what, I don't fucking feel like carrying that bag around today. This thing's they just have so much sadistic glee. They're just like, I love carrying around this 75-pound bag of tricks.
My sack of mischief.
Right.
Tee hee ho ho. What can I do to make you bleed? Hee hee ho ho.
To me too, it almost like it's almost kind of like the same idea that Trick or Treat has of like a Sam going around with his sack, and on Halloween night. I feel like there's a similar idea there at play with the supernatural element and
yeah, but Sam wasn't pulling out a handgun to
No, he did. No, he didn't. No. Yeah, what do you think about like the whole scene with the baby doll and that woman that's in the warehouse? Because it's like kind of comes out of nowhere. At least
unnecessary. It's like 15 minutes of padding that's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Is he trying to tell like, oh, look, a homeless person and mental illness and some of the, we should just have pity for these people? Or is it just crazy cat lady syndrome? Yeah, it's just crazy cat lady syndrome. Yeah, because I mean, she's just there as a body.
Mm-hmm.
And And I guarantee her character probably wasn't written. She was probably like, okay, what do you like? What do you want me to do? And he's like, find your spirit. What do you want to do?
Mm.
And that's what she probably settled on after a couple of tries. Like,
We'll do crazy mommy lady. Yeah.
I'll do a homeless cat lady. Perfect. Day into action.
Do you think it's like meant to be like trying to allude to a backstory of Art the Clown and then like reset it, like, you know, because it's not obviously not the defining characteristic of him, like, oh, he has mommy issues, and then, you know, they circumvent that by having him murder her in brutal fashion, and it's almost like no, there's no like characteristic that defines his, you know, his personality.
He's just Buffalo Bill.
It's just a psycho.
That was hilarious when he puts their skin on and starts walking around like he's like has dick tucked in like he's Buffalo Bill. That was hilarious.
I mean, funny, yes. Effective for the movie, I don't think so. I didn't say it was effective. I said it was hilarious. Like, I would much prefer.
All I could think of is I'm just listening into my head, and I'm not even thinking of Silence of the Lambs. I'm thinking Clerks 2, like goodbye horse.
Yeah, I would much prefer the film to stay more on the serious side than it does, especially as it starts to get a lot more ridiculous as the film goes along. I know it's trying to be brutal and, you know, stuff like that, but I feel like the brutality kind of like fades out.
I think it's definitely trying to split the difference, I think, of like having the brutality, but also because he's a clown, have these comedic moments, which I do admire it, because like something like Hostel, what makes Hostel such a terrible film and a lot of Rob Zombie stuff, it's not that like it's like, oh, it's just torture porn, but it's just like insufferable assholes being insufferable, miserable little shits with no redeeming qualities or anything that makes them interesting or funny. Mm. And here, I think Art kind of gets that away with that because he's a clown, so it does kind of make it like funny. And I mean, it doesn't really fit perfectly. Like I get it, like what they're going for, but it doesn't really fit. But I think with a couple more tries, like maybe he could get it to work. Because again, like David Thornton does a really good job. Like he doesn't speak at all in this movie, and he is really great at like emoting Art the Clown with his facial expressions and everything that he does to kind of like, you know, what he is and doing as a character. He does a great job, and you know that's something to be said. And I think the fact that this film is kind of rudderless overall that's its biggest downfall. It doesn't have, because it doesn't have a plot. It doesn't really have anything going for it outside of, you know, warehouse runaround. There's nothing there, and there's nothing to anchor what's going on in this world. So like, except Art the Clown and the violence, and
and I feel like once you get to that point too at the end where Tara's already been killed, and you know that's fine too. You know, it's killing the main protagonist, something that's not really new to movies, and we see it quite a bit. You know, obviously it's done famously in Scream. It's done in Psycho. It takes a little bit longer in Psycho than Scream. That's fine to switch characters on it and everything like that. But I feel like at a certain point, as we get through the brutality, and you as an audience know that there's sort of like this aimlessness to the storyline, I feel like the amount that you care about what's going on at the end, about if anybody's going to make it out, and the plight of what's her name, Victoria, because like honestly you literally don't care or even know Victoria at all. Literally is just a character that's brought in about 45 minutes in and just does stuff. So I feel like the stakes of the movie at the end is just non-existent. You don't really care what happens. And you fully expect that probably no one's going to make it out alive. And there's that torture porn element to it and in some cases, you know, you could call it, I don't know that I agree, but like misogyny of mostly women being brutally murdered in heinous ways. I feel like you just become desensitized to it towards the end of the 84-minute running time, and it really just misses having any like meaningful reaction from the viewer.
I think I was sorry to cut you off, but I do think you're right. Especially like if this was a 45-minute film, this would be a great film because it encapsulates like a good, like, it doesn't have a plot, but it captures like a visceralness and edginess, real tension with it. As soon as they kill off Tara, which again, it doesn't really matter because none of these characters really mean anything. And we get saddled with Victoria, it doesn't matter because we've already seen what we expect to be, the final girl off less than halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rest of it is just, in this hour and 20-minute film, half of it is a film, the rest of it is a prologue. Epilogue. And it definitely overstays its welcome.
Yeah, I think that it just doesn't manage to do it. What do you think about the end of the movie as we get to basically what's present day? It jumps a year ahead, and then you see, Victoria is the one who is the deformed woman that we see Art the Clown basically eating. He's eating pieces off of her, cutting it off and eating. What do you think about that reveal?
It's okay. I didn't realize that was supposed to tie back to the opening. I thought it was like another year went by. And
yeah, I think that's kind of the
because they don't
think about it.
They don't really do a good job of tying it together because they don't go from that TV thing and be like 1 year, 1 year before,
I think it's supposed to be like a surprise, right? Like you're like, oh, that's the woman. But at the same time, by that time, I'd kind of forgotten about that woman. I was just like, oh, that was just like some random sting at the beginning of the movie about Art the Clown. I didn't really think about it again until the very end. And it was like,
yeah, it's like, that cold open was really weird.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's not that effective because you're just like, oh, is that woman? It's just kind of loses the oomph that it should really have, or because there's no point to it really. There's no it's like, well, what does it matter that she's the woman from the opening? It's no real, I don't know, there's no real rhyme or reason to why you should care. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that about any of the stings at the end of horror movies. Why should you care that the killer's not actually dead? I don't know, but I don't know. It just feels like it falls flat there. It didn't.
Boogity boom, magic. That's how.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The one thing I do like, though, is that the film does bring up that very, very overused trope of it's a coroner and he's going to be eating. He's going to be eating while he's dissecting the body. See, they do talk about
and he's an asshole. It's which does make sense. I mean, if you do think about it, how can you joke about all this shit? It's I've been doing it for 22 years. You have to, just disassociate somehow. Yeah. Otherwise, every time you got to cut open somebody, God damn, hey, that body? No, how could this happen again in my town?
I know. I mean, I do kind of like that. I thought it was pretty good. And,
I love the joke of him. I love the joke of him being can you look? I can't believe it. All these bodies. I'm gonna be here all night. So why don't you give me a breakfast sandwich? Something with bacon, preferably bacon. I want bacon.
Yeah, he's give me a breakfast sandwich with bacon or bacon, something with bacon.
Aren't you supposed to be watching your cholesterol? I am, and it's going up.
Yeah, I did like that too. He's like, who's the MD here? He's like, shut the fuck up, orderly. Go get me a breakfast sandwich.
I'll do that the next time I have my blood work, and my doctor's like, cholesterol's getting high. And it's like, yeah, well, I've been watching it go up.
Yeah, I've been watching it. It's gonna go up. Yeah, it's a good little joke there. Yeah, I agree with you about the supernatural element. I think that's probably the least effective part of it, especially because you have I can understand if you had Art the Clown do some sort of goofball thing where it wasn't very evident that he actually killed himself, he couldn't possibly be actually dead, right? Like, but the way that it happens and the way that he shoots himself right in the face, and you see all the blood trickling down after he's dead and all of that makes it very, very clear. Like, no, that guy's dead. Like, he's not coming back from that. But then to have him like supernaturally resurrected, I think is kind of a dumb element to it. It's a lot more interesting and scary if this is just some random serial killer guy that's going around as a clown on Halloween night. It's a much more effective element than some sort of supernatural capacity that he's doing. What else? Anything else you got here?
I think that's about it. I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. Like we were saying, there's not a whole lot of plot to cover. It is, in essence, sort of torture porn. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about, though? The soundtrack, because you said you really like the soundtrack. The moments of, like, sort of tense stalkerness that occur later on in the movie with the synth score.
Well, I didn't say I love the whole soundtrack. I did, however, really enjoy like the whole like kind of stalking theme. It had like a nice little synthy and like drum machine beat going on, like dun, 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 dun.
And I mean, it's very reminiscent of Halloween too, because it's got like that.
Well, it's totally Carpenter, but like again, like this film is like a great homage of like, you know, a billion things that we kind of talked about, you know, reference. Like the film was intentionally referencing other stuff, so I get it. I know why I like it. It's like, oh, it's a Carpenter score if I ever heard that, but I thought it worked really. That at least that, you know, score worked really well. I liked it.
And speaking of Amish, did you hear on the radio? He says like Craven's. It's like Craven's costume shop or something like that. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I like the soundtrack as well for the most part. You know, it does have sort of like that. Low budget indie films generally do. They just like go up to their random local bands and like, hey, you wanna cut a track for our film? And so they
got Don Carpenter on that.
Yeah, but they a lot of these
he did it for free.
A lot of these end up with like local new metal bands doing their thing. But
why you gotta say that?
That's true.
We're gonna speak that evil into the world.
New metal. Love it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all I got for it. I think, like I said, the Halloween element is not super prevalent, so it's a disappointment. I've heard, or as far I've seen, Terrifier 2 may have more of a Halloween presence, so that would be nice.
As they do. 2.5 hours ain't nice.
I do think this one misses the mark a little bit. You know, it wants to have Halloween, but also doesn't know what to do with it. So, I don't know. Hopefully they improve that for the second one. All right, so we got to give this a rating, though. So, on a scale of 15 broken hacksaws used for vaginal dissection, what would you give
Muff mutilation.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of puts a new spin on that Cronenbergian instruments that they use in the Dead Ringers, right? Those were supposed to be like terrifying for a woman, right? Because, you know, it's obviously that they're using them for vaginal stuff. Then you just got Art the Clown going at it with a fucking hacksaw. I think that probably the instruments are a little bit scarier, to be honest with you, than the hacksaw. Because the hacksaws, you're just like, that's fucking stupid. I do like, too, we didn't talk about this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your rating or anything.
No, you're fine.
I did like, too, like during that whole hacksaw scene, it's like he's getting down to like her neck, her throat, and she's still alive screaming. It's like, dude, come on now. Most of her insides are out. Most of her insides have migrated outside, so.
Well, I like that they make a point to show the intestines, that's the small intestines just kind of hit the ground, but nothing else, like, you know. Like I said, that whole scene is just fucking ridiculous. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, I fail to see it even being like grotesque, right? Like I don't.
No, it's not. It's it's so surreal and so far-fetched. You definitely enter comedic territory. Like, okay, like that's you can't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. I wish I had I took a video of me laughing. Cause
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10 hacksaw, 15 broken hacksaws, what would you give Terrifier?
I'll give it 2 pizza slices. No, I'll give it a 6.5. To be honest with you, I found myself for the first half hour of this film really enjoying it. I thought it was interesting enough. It was engaging. Saw Art the Clown. David Thornton did a really great job. Portraying him being emotive, being creepy, being scary. The whole setup into the pizza parlor, very fun, very tense, very scary and creepy. The way it's shot, really interesting. Some of the kills we even talk about in the pizza parlor. The one guy that he kills, the poor other pizza parlor dude, is there's shit and piss and blood all over the fucking bathroom, and it's he's like, I need time and a half to do this. You don't make me clean this. This is fucking ridiculous. I'm going home. It's that's right. Go home, bud. Who took a power and shit on the wall? That's so disgusting.
Yeah, right.
But that first 30 minutes of this film is very engaging, and it's really well done. And even though there's no real plot except for it to be a stalk, it is enjoyable and I think well paced and well plotted out. It's after that, as soon as you really get into the warehouse and then the actual warehouse setting and the characters in the warehouse and the killings in the warehouse and the stalking in the warehouse, where for the most part it becomes an absolute slog. There are some really good moments when the terror finally gets captured and she's tied in a chair and Art the Clown's threatening her is really tense, really cool, and really imaginative. But as soon as you get to Dawn getting fucking muff-dyed with a hacksaw, it's fucking ridiculous. And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the kills and the gore is fun. It's well done. A lot, all the practical effects in this film are really good, especially for the budget. It's just, it becomes a meandering mess. It becomes aimless from one listless idea to the next. And that's the biggest problem with this film. It did have a lot of promise. And I'm not somebody who really cares for torture porn, because I think it's kind of it's just a boring exercise. I don't find it to be really fun to just watch, people just get mutilated, in creative ways. It's in brutal ways. It doesn't really, do anything. What makes Funny Games a great film is because of, the psychology that, Michael Haneke has, and has something attached to it, and that's also a critique on the viewer. So it's, interesting. Here, there's none of that. It's just got a lot of nice little, homages to other horror films, which is nice. But like I said, it's an interesting idea. I would watch Terrifier 2. I'd be waiting a while though, because that 2.5 hour, 2 hour plus runtime really scares me, especially with any slasher film, because there's only so much you can do, and it'll be interesting to see. But I do think this is a film that I think worth definitely worth checking out, at least, because it's got enough interesting ideas. But just be aware that it does become a meandering mess. So I'd say 6.5.
Wow, you gave it more than I actually thought you were going to. I'm going to go with 5.5 on this one. I think there's a reason why I didn't remember seeing it, and I think that it is, besides the hacksaw scene, I think that Terrifier is pretty much mediocre and really unmemorable, and it's probably because it loses its whatever direction it had when it goes into the actual torture porn madness of just constantly doing gore for the sake of gore and murdering for the sake of murdering. It doesn't have a really interesting story. It doesn't keep you too engaged after that first 30 minutes of suspense that it sets up. And I feel like that's the biggest the biggest downfall of the film, the thing that people are going to notice the most, is that there's a interesting setup, pretty effective, creepy atmosphere, and then the film does really nothing with it. And it actually kind of goes in the opposite direction, goes in much more generic territory. It's like, here's a fucking warehouse. Here's the random tools and shit on the ground that we're going to use to kill people. It's very, very generic, super generic torture porn from the 2000s to the 2010s. And I think that that's what turns me off from Terrifier, because it just doesn't do that well. Now, practical effects are good, of course. They're very splattery, they're very goopy and messy, and the kills are admittedly brutal and at times misogynistic. But I don't really think that makes an interesting movie, and I think that's where Terrifier loses a lot of its audience. I'm sure there's people who are just like, yeah, I fucking love torture porn. I just love watching miserable things happen to people, and there's really no rhyme or reason, or there's no point to it at all. It's just nihilism. But for me, there's got to be something more to it than that, and I just think that Terrifier doesn't really have that appeal. It doesn't have a plot that really pulls things together. And honestly, the plot itself that it tries to do just makes it even more messy. Like, no reason for some of the characters to even be here. So what it does attempt, it does a really poor job of actually tying together. So I give it a 5.5. I think it's interesting film to watch one time. You probably won't even remember watching it the next year, so you might turn it on again. You'd be like, fuck is this Terrifier? This is a Halloween movie. I'll check it out again. And you might remember it, you might not. So I think that's probably, that's both a good thing and also a really, poor review of the movie, is that it's just not memorable. Even though it has what should be a memorable scene. It just doesn't work like that. So, but I still will check out Terrifier 2 at some point. I do plan on it, just because I want to see what all the hubbub is. What's so different about Terrifier 2 that wasn't done in this movie?
Now, let me ask you: do you think Art the Clown is in like the zeitgeist for like?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Let's kind of set that up as a lingering question and didn't cover it.
Tune in 3 years when we do Terrifier 2.
Yeah. I mean, from just seeing Terrifier, I would say no. I don't really think Art the Clown is that memorable of a character. There were things about Freddy Krueger that were just like extremely memorable, extremely cool, things that you would just, wow, that's an iconic character like right away. Or like Michael Myers, there's something about him being the Shape, especially in the first movie, where it's just like, wow.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah, Mrs. Voorhees or Jason later on. But yeah, there are just some things about some of the icons. I would say actually Jason is more of one of the boring or horror icons. But
Jason is totally boring. So is Leatherface. Most of them are, to be honest with you. Like,
I mean, of course,
Jason
Pinhead's great. I love Pinhead as an icon.
Well, we still need to do the Hellraiser films, which I've never seen it. So
wow.
I know. I told you that 1,000 times. You still can't believe it. I've never seen it.
No. Yeah.
No. I'll say I think he is, but there's a caveat for that. What has from the 2000 up offered us outside of Jigsaw?
Probably the only one that I can think of is the guy from Hatchet, the killer from Hatchet, which admittedly has not really had that much staying power either. I mean, there were 3 Hatchet films, and
so I could easily see how like this is like something people have got attached to, especially because from 2000 on, it's been a who's who of just remaking horror films into the ground in shittier versions. So it's almost like if you were like a slasher fan and you got this, you probably would be like, oh, thank you, Jesus, something different, something new.
What about the Firefly family? Firefly family from the House of 1,000 Corpses. Rob Zombie's
I mean, I'm not
pseudo Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I would say that though they did become sort of an icon from 2003 because of course he did the House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
He's actually got technically a trilogy now.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say them.
He recently just did his third film, Beau is Afraid, with them.
Yeah, you're right though. There's not very many icons that have come out of the 2000s. So Art the Clown very well could be considered, I guess, an icon.
See, and you were right, Sam. I would put probably Sam up there, and I've only seen Trick or Treat that one time, and it's pretty iconic, just from that alone. The films, was pretty good, but I wouldn't say anything stellar from my memory. But I mean, Sam's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, they never they didn't do Trick or Treat 2, right?
Not yet.
So I mean, yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Art's? I say Art's got it by default.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It's like, hey, who's the top 20 killer, serial killer from the 2000s on? That's the original. It's like, well, Jigsaw and I guess just all Art.
So what are we doing next week?
I don't know. What are we doing next week?
Maybe
Too early for Saw 10.
Yeah, it's too early for Saw 10. We could do the WNUF Halloween Special. Okay, let's do that. I know we planned on it. Yeah. One of my favorites. I do love to watch it every year. It's hilarious.
Are we going to, and I forgot, but I was reminded when I was watching this movie and saw an ad, are we going to cram in The Exorcist beginning or no?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll try to get that in there too.
Or do you want to save that maybe for an Exorcist when we do an Exorcist block?
I don't know. I kind of want to see it now and see what David Gordon Green has done. I think you gotta experience it at the start, right? All right, so
we'll work backwards in the Exorcist series.
Yeah, right.
Because you can't top one. You can't top the first. You can't even bother trying. It's like...
Yeah.
Do you think he sits there and they're like, when Blumhouse is like, hey, here's something for you to do. And he's like, you want me to do what the hell? Jesus Christ, I can't keep doing this shit.
No, I think he's the one that's bringing him to Blumhouse.
People are gonna think I'm an asshole.
Yeah. All right, so if you want to,
especially after the third, I say the second and third Halloween.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks I'm an asshole now. Come on. You know what? We're not gonna do We're gonna do The Omen next week.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Damien.
The remake with who's in that? Well, Liev Schreiber, I think, is in the remake one.
Let's do Psycho, but with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, like the shot for shot.
Yeah, but with Vince Vaughn.
With Vince Vaughn. If you want to hear more episodes about Halloween movies,
somebody should take that movie. Every time he kills somebody, just be like, "Grow up, Peter Pan."
We'll be back with WNUF Halloween Special, so you'll definitely want to subscribe, so you can listen to that. We're on pretty much any podcasting app you can think of: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, home base at Anchor.fm, which is now Spotify. So you can subscribe on there and leave us a nice review. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for us, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. You write to us, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what movies you want us to watch, and we'll take that into consideration. And also, we have a Patreon page at patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast. Whatever you donate there, we're putting back towards Oktoberfest. So, Prost.
Also, because we are on Spotify, we are also by 6 Degrees of Separation partners with Joe Rogan, if you like Joe Rogan. We don't, but...
Yeah, that's true. I think he did an advertisement for us one time.
Yeah, throw that out there, you know. 6 Degrees of Separation.
That's right. All right, yeah. So that'll do it for our episode on Terrifier. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. And come back for our WNUF Halloween Special episode. I think that'll be a lot of fun. We'll be back next week with that. And until then,
take care.